Today we're looking at the second day of factoring by grouping. Yesterday what we learned was that in factoring by grouping we noticed that the problem had 4 terms, and that was a hint for us to split it down the middle and find the GCF of both parts. We also worked on finishing the question. Let's review that basic process again. Once you see 4 terms, split it in front of the sign. Take out what you can. We can take out a 3. We can also take off 2 x's. This leaves us 4 with an x plus 1 because there's nothing left over there. 3 is gone. 3 divided by 3 is gone, and then x squared is gone altogether. Copy the sign. These two can both be divided by 5, which leaves you 4x plus 1. And what we learned is that the 4x plus 1 is what they have in common, which when you take that off, you're left with 3x squared plus 5. And so that was a process that we learned yesterday. Today what we're going to do is focus on 2 tricky situations that arise whenever you factor with grouping. So be sure you pay attention to the parts that make it tricky, or you run the risk of getting lost today, because every problem on your work is going to be what we call a trick problem. Now, it's not a problem that you can't do. It's just a problem that you have to make sure you're paying attention to the issue that arises on them. So the first type of tricky problem is whenever the middle sign is negative. Whenever you encounter this, it is important that you trust the process. The process is completed by copying the subtraction sign and copying the first set of parentheses. Again, it looks weird, but if you trust the process, if you got answers yesterday, you know that the process works. Here we can divide both of these by 2, and we can take off 2 w's. That leaves us with 4w plus 3. Notice every day I've always said copy the sign, so you must make sure if this is a minus that you copy a minus. The second thing is that you find the number that goes into both of these, which is 7. But if you notice, every single time we've done this, the first parentheses has always matched the second, and so whenever you see that, instead of following that, just go ahead and trust that this is going to be 4w plus 3, because that's what it's going to be. Again, if you look at it, negative 7 times 4w is negative 28w. Negative 7 times positive 3 is a negative 21, so it does work out. But again, in this problem, whenever you have a negative there, and that's really what the hint is, whenever the negative is there, just copy this over the way it is and trust that you did everything right. So 4w plus 3 is what they have in common, leaving us 2w squared minus 7. Alright, so again, if there is a minus, that's going to tell you that it looks weird. Just copy that first parentheses over to the second, because that's what it's going to be anyway. Second example of this, here the biggest number is 7 with an x squared, which leaves us 3x minus 4. Again, copy the sign. 6 and 8 can both be divided by 2, but notice that these signs are different, but you have to trust the system. This is going to be 3x plus 4. Do a real quick check. Negative 2 times 3 is negative 6. Negative 2, I'm sorry, it should be minus 4. Negative 2 times negative 4 equals a positive 8. And so in the end, they both have 3x minus 4 in common, which when you take them off, you end up with 7x squared minus 2. Again, trust the process. It's really not that bad of a problem as long as you have some experience with it. Splitting down the middle here, again in front of the sign, the biggest number here is 10. And I can also take off 2 s's, which leaves me no number with a s plus 8 here. Copy the symbol there. The biggest number I can take out of that is 7. Again, this negative means let's just go ahead and trust that this is going to be s plus 8 and do a real quick check. Negative 7 times s is negative 7s. Negative 7 times positive 8 is 56. They both have s plus 8 in common, leaving us 10s squared minus 7 to be left over. The second type of tricky situation is the one where the second half of the problem has no factors higher than 1. And whenever you're looking for the GCF and nothing comes out, we simply have to use the value of 1 to complete the problem. Look at the following examples real fast before we get ready to go. And so we look at 6x to the third plus 9x squared. We can take off a 3 as well as 2 x's. This leaves us 2x plus 3. Copy the sign, which is a plus, and notice that there is no number that comes out of 2 and 3. And so what you don't want to do is just put a parentheses 2x plus 3. We have to say that since nothing comes out, put a 1 outside the parentheses, and again, you know it's going to be 2x plus 3. Notice that this matches that, which is true. Now they both have 2x plus 3 in common, and you are left with 3x squared plus 1. Alright. So again, the trick here is if nothing comes out, be sure to put a 1 outside the parentheses, otherwise you really cannot complete the factoring. Example B, again, split it in front of the parentheses. Biggest number I can take out of 25 and 15 is 5, j squared, which leaves me 5j plus 3. Copy the sign. Again, this is a minus. And notice that nothing comes out of 5 and 3, which means I just simply want to put a 1 there and copy this over. So 5j plus 3. They both have 5j plus 3 in common. And when you take those off, you are left with 5j squared minus 1. Again, not hard, just something you're going to have to practice today. And then on this one, split it down the middle. Actually, there's nothing we can take out of 7 and 16, so the only we can take off is r squared, giving us 7 stays 7, 7r plus 16. Copy the sign here. Again, 7 and 16 cannot be divided by the same number, so we put a 1 there. We open this up here, and then we put 7r plus 16 in there, because remember, the first is always going to match the second. They both have 7r plus 16 in them, and you are left with r squared minus 1. Now, I will tell you right now that later on in your algebra experience, this will not be a stopping point, but for right now it is fine. Just make sure you again understand the process. It is important that you practice these new skills today so you can do well on the test at the end of the week. Tomorrow what you're going to do is take a pre-test so that we can identify your weaknesses. Then of course we're going to go over those pre-test results on Thursday. This should give us a good chance of doing well on our unit exam and doing well for the semester. So as I usually say, get the second sheet from me and begin working on that. Again, you can use me for as assistance. You can use each other for assistance. Other than that, good luck.